vintage stereo collectors on the bench today. Kenwood KA2500, also known as the TK250. And this is a classic 6970 unit. And especially the way they were constructed, a lot of point-to-point, a lot of inter-chassis wiring, which was cleaned up on later models. But the neat thing about these, the switch gear, really nice. Separate switches, actually soldered and wired. They're not on a board. All the controls are just basically bolted in. And this stuff has stood the test of time. It really has. Now this one, I've done a complete recap on it. Both in the power supply section, the output caps, all the boards. And it's sounding pretty good, but you run into a classic problem with these. These rocker switches get noisy. On the monitor function here, this is the source monitor switch. I switched back to the source, it would drop the right channel, this kind of stuff. And this is these Alps rocker switches. And the thing about them, I took this one apart already. I did a previous version of this video, but it was getting to me about 8 minutes. It was getting to be too long. So I thought I'd take it partially apart to make it easier. These are very hard to spray. You gotta get the faceplate off and the nozzle in there. But here's the thing, with years of corrosion and mechanical wear, where you use Neutral or Deox or whatever it is, it won't last long. And I've had a couple of these recently where I've rebuilt them, they're working great. A month later, as the lube dries up, you end up with a gritty sounding channel. So anyway, there's just tabs that hold these together. So you have the case, tiny little ball, the contactor, and the contact plate. I cut it right out. One of the issues with these is the wires are usually just barely make it to the switch, so once you desolder or clip them off, they won't reach again, so you gotta do a little jostling around. But I'll show you how to clean one of these up. This one was in pretty good shape. 600 grit. Just basically clean the contacts, get the oxidation off them. Don't get too vigorous. I don't use a steel brush or anything like that. You do have to mechanically clean them. I find there's nothing that will really dissolve that. Plus with this one there was indents into the surface, and so you want to smooth it out again. I just clean it up with a Q-tip, get all the grit. Right here, this is what the slider goes on. Just give that a little cleaning on the edges. Hope this is coming through okay. It's not the highest resolution camera, but it's not bad. Clean that off. This is like, each one of these is almost like a set of points in a car from years ago. Anybody that remembers that stuff? You did a real tune-up on a car, you changed the points, the condenser, the rotor, the distributor cap, the wires, the spark plug. Set up the timing and the dwell. So, clean that up. The center pivots there, so you want to shine that up a little bit. Like that. That looks great. Here's the trick to getting it back together again. Just use a little heavy-duty lithium grease. Well, look at the mess I'm going to make. Dab some on the end of the spring. Like that. See if we can do this with any coordination. Oh, I did it. Watch out for hairs and stuff that get in there. So anyway, it's good to have some grease there because it will slide on the back of this and you'll have a really smooth operating switch and it will stay off the contacts. So here's how to get it back together. Facing up, facing down. The grease is going to hold the ball in, but this needs gravity holding it in, okay? So basically you bring this onto here, line it up with the case, bring it together, and there's spring tension there. It's pretty vigorous. You gotta get it down. And needle nose pliers. Crimp it back together. Try not to crimp your hand, which has happened before. Crimp it together enough that the plate stays on. Yeah, it does take a bit of force. That side should hold down. Do the same here. Down, down. Try it a bit. It needs to be crimped. One thing I noticed on a few of these, I was working on a Sansui earlier in the spring. Similar switch, different look on the outside. It's like a thing that looks like that. Same switch inside. What was happening with that one? It was so oxidized inside, the switch had actually stuck in place. It probably hadn't been moved for 40 years. And you got to be careful forcing some of this stuff because you may not have a parts unit to grab another one out. But that wafer's on tight. Another thing that happens with these, with time and force, back, forth, these loosen up and the wafer moves back. And then you end up with things happen like just poor contact. So basically, that little ball that's there in the end of the spring, you've got this, it's almost like a teeter-totter inside. Okay? You move it, the ball's over here, it flips it down, these two, so this connected to this connected to this, flip it back, connected here and here. So it's the opposite of what you think. So if the switch is in the on position, it's the contacts on the opposite side that are connected. Just remember that. Have a schematic when you put it back. Or you can I do this kind of thing. This is my own secret language of what I found underneath. So you know, like yellow, blue, red wires. And the reason I do that is I've done a lot of these and they're all slightly different. It's unbelievable. The interstage, there's some shielded cable in here. It's not color coded on this one. It's a black exterior with a white inside. So you don't know, like, does this one, you unsolder stuff, then you have a bunch of identical looking cables. The other thing on this one was these yellow and blue wires. I mean, it's not yellow with a red stripe that you know goes on here. You should take a picture of it, make a drawing, because once you start taking it apart, then you got to start tracing things when you put it back together. Anyway, this is how to get these working nicely. And if you wish, just a little bit of contact cleaner in there. I'll just show you. I like this Neutral stuff. It's almost the same formula as Deoxit, just a little more reasonably priced. So you get it in there, close your eyes, look the other way, squirt. Stop breathing for a minute because the smell is so bad. Oh, that's just like a new switch. That's beautiful. And you can even test it out if you want on the meter to make sure you have contact that breaks when you move it. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening.